Hey guys, welcome back to Eric's Everything Auto. I got another repair video for you today on this 1994 Ford F-150. This has the old school 4.9 liter 300 cubic inch inline six. Now this engine has been used for a long time before this. It was actually used in a lot of the Ford tractors and such in the farm equipment. So something that is very often overlooked. Most people don't start here first, but I think that it's probably the easiest thing to check. So this is what you should do if your F-150 shuts down on you and doesn't have any spark. So the customer had this vehicle to a shop. This was the previous owner actually, had it to a shop, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. From what I could tell, they had already done a few things. The intake tube was off, the distributor cap was off, the PCM here on the firewall was pulled out and sitting up here. Nothing had been done with the ignition module. So what I did is I went ahead and put everything back together just to see if it would run. See what I could check. First and foremost, I checked spark from the plug, from the coil. Found out that I wasn't getting any type of spark directly. So one of the very first things that you should try on this vehicle that they didn't was check to make sure that the timing was good. On these particular inline six Fords, this actually was in a lot of the old tractors as well. You need to check and make sure that the plastic cam gear, timing gear, did not strip out. And the way to do that is you take your two bolts off of your distributor cap, remove the cap, and just simply crank the engine. If that rotor inside of that cap does not spin, you know you have a bad gear and you got to do your timing job. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're getting ready to do. I've already verified that that doesn't spin after checking everything else, like checking all those previous things that the last customer had already checked and didn't get anywhere with, because they had not gotten quite far enough, which was the cam gear is stripped out. So the number one thing we're going to do here, obviously, is tear down. So fan shroud has to come off first. Pretty easy, 2 bolts. Then you come down here to the fan itself. You take a fan clutch tool. Basically, it is a wrench that fits down onto the fan bolt here, and then you use an air hammer to knock it loose. Then that'll twist out. You remove your serpentine belt, then the pulley for the water pump, which is attached to the fan here, which is just a couple of 10mm bolts. Once that's removed, then you go ahead and remove your crank pulley, which is way down there on the bottom. Once you remove that crank pulley, then you are open to the timing cover and such. So we're going to go ahead and do all of that first so that you don't have to watch, and then we will come right back. All right, now that the fan and fan pulley are removed, I'm going to go ahead and remove the crank pulley. Now the way to do that, after you take the 24mm crank pulley bolt off, you're going to use this kit here. I've already got the bolts out and everything that I need for this. So it's 3 bolt holes, and bolt that in, and then run your center down through, and then I'll probably use this tip here, and then you'll run this down after you've bolted this to the pulley, and once you run that in to the crank, it'll literally pull the pulley right off. So this part didn't get video recorded because of the huge, gigantic pain in the ass that it was. So you can see here the 4.9 liter Ford 300 cubic inch inline six old trusty faithful here, which obviously is, that goes on the bottom side in here. All right, so let's flip this over. and show you the cause here of the failure. As you can see, these are all dirty. And you look straight down here. This is what actually happened. This is the failure. The customer was complaining of no spark, and they couldn't figure out where their fire was missing. They went through and they checked all kinds of other things except for this. This is a very common issue for these vehicles, so this is really what you should check first. And the way to check that without any heavy teardown and pulling your timing apart, and I'll tell you exactly what happened here to get this off in a second, is you simply take your distributor cap off, 2 bolts, real quick and easy. Have somebody turn the key. If that rotor does not spin, your gears are stripped out and you need to do a timing job. So, this with a puller usually breaks off, as you can see. That's what I found with everybody that ever did this job. They said that these things are just notorious for breaking apart. It's really, it looks like some brick hash. Looks like it's just green and brown, and it's all different colors in there. But so anyhow, after this broke off, and you can see that the that is literally the opposite side. Did I not? Here, there we go. And then that goes in there. And this little puppy right there was in there. Okay, so use a puller where it tells you to, and grabs on the outside of the gear, and bang, this breaks apart, and you're left with this thing on the inside of your motor, or pressed against the cam. This quite often will not come off. As you can see, there are a lot of marks here where I tried to pull it off, and there's some other marks, which is how I actually got it off. So the best way I found to get this off here was basically treating it like a bearing race. Is I cut it with the angle grinder. I used just a cutting wheel, and I cut a couple of grooves into it, and then I used a flat blade on my air hammer, and then just pretty much just smacked it on the very edge. That was the quick and easiest way I found. The pullers, I broke 2 pullers trying to get it off, and then I just came up with that idea and I gave it a shot, and it spun it right off. It was really easy that way, for what easy is, I guess. But I did have to get in there with a cutting wheel and put a couple of notches. All right, well, now that we have the crank pulley, the cam pulley, everything's all disassembled now, we're going to go ahead and it also cleaned up. I've already gone through and I scratched all the old gasket off. So we are going to go ahead and install everything. It is time to put everything back together in the proper way. All right, I do want to throw this in here real quick. In order to be on the compression stroke, fine compression, and TDC, you got to make sure that your cam is your key is clocked at 12 before you set your before you spin your crank to find out where your compression stroke is at, and TDC. Because if your cam isn't set for TDC, your valves won't be open and closed at the proper spot. It won't be closed in order to show you that you have compression. So it will just let the air out, and you won't be able to find any air coming out of your cylinder number 1. So just always make sure that you clock your cam first before trying to find your TDC. I had got everything set up in advance here, and I will go through and explain very carefully. First, you need to make sure you're at TDC. Top dead center on compression stroke is very simple to find. You simply take out your number 1 spark plug, which is down in that hole right there. There's no, you can't see. Hold on. Need some light, need some light, need some light. Where the hell are my lights? Oh, look over here. Okay, let's try this again. Light on the situation. There's your spark plug hole, TDC. So basically, you just need to get your crank bolt in, and you want to start turning your crank until you feel pressure coming out of that hole. Okay, very simply, just stick your finger down on there, and you'll feel the air coming out when it hits your compression stroke. Once you start feeling that air, you want to make sure that your keyway on your crank there is pointing 12 o'clock, straight up. That will move your dot to the right position, that when your cam keyway is also set at 12 o'clock, that your timing marks line up. So there your timing marks are lined up. Everything is set where it needs to be. The next step here is going to be pressing in that cam pulley. Cam pulley is going to need to be pressed in, and I'll show you the setup for that. All right, here's our setup. We have a pulley install bearing and nut. The center of this nut is very thin, and that's where this rod passes through but doesn't catch. The small plate from my puller set. My installer set, excuse me. My only issue with the installer set and most sets that I've found, I looked all over the place to try to find the right thread pitch and could not. So what I did is I went to the hardware store and I found myself a 7/16 by 14 6-inch threaded rod. Used that to thread into the cam, and then put my cam pulley on, put my bearing on, a little plate for my nut to ride against, and then as that presses down and creates pressure on the pulley right where it needs to be, it should press it down onto the shaft, as we're going to hold it here and keep the threaded rod from spinning, because obviously we want to keep the pressure tight. So you're going to hold on with one wrench here and tighten down with this here. So just to keep it from the rod from moving, that's why you need the second wrench. But then you're just going to twist her down until this presses the pulley all the way on. Once you get to the point where you have a whole lot of resistance and it won't go down any further, you're obviously bottomed out on the bearing. The cam will touch the bearing slightly. Then that's all the further down you need to go. You can just go flush with the cam right on the edge of the pulley. I have not tried this yet, so we're about to find out if this is going to work. Up there. Now we're just going to go to start taking her down, little by little here. It's hard to tell. Is it going on straight? Is it going in on an angle? It does look like it's twisting down though. And that's what it's about when you got the right tool for the job. Oh baby. Uh-oh. Twist her down, twist her down. I am very, very shocked that this is going down so easy, to be perfectly honest with you. I did not expect it to go down so easy, because the way it came off, oh God, let's just say that's why there isn't any footage of it coming off, because it was just horrible. Oh, I think we're bottoming out here now. Give it a couple of more little... Yeah, it's still going a little tight. We're still moving a little. Yeah, we're still going. Still has a tiny bit to go yet. And I believe we are down. Yep, we're down. That's it. Hold on to this nut, and I'm going to back this one off. That'll, yeah, we're down. 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 We're down.
release my pressure off of my cam gear. There we go. And now that really just wind her out. Let's see what we got here. We're darn close to pressed all the way in. So I did bottom out. There's nowhere else for me to go here, so only thing I got to do yet is press the crank gear down on, now that we know everything's timed right, and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, got the timing cover ready and set here. Pull the old seal out, put the new seal in. Just want to make sure that when you're doing the old seal and pulling it out, that you do not damage the edges between the seal and the timing cover. Like on the timing cover, you don't want to scratch that, because then you end up getting oil leak through there. So I did run a little tiny bead of RTV in there before pressing it in, just to be safe. And then they do have a seal press tool, which is a plate that just sits on top of there and has a spot to pound down on it. What I used was a just a flat plate hammer, and just smacked it right down on there, nice and easy. RTV'd the gasket down on. That is set up a little bit. Now I'm going to RTV this side and slide it down on there. Got the timing cover and the pulley back on. Crank pulley has been drawn down on. I did that with an installer. 5/8 by 18 is your thread pitch for your crank. So I install that into the crank with a bearing and a nut through the crank pulley, and then after that is after I twist this all the way down, I hold this rod in place and then crank this nut down, and that's what presses the pulley back onto the crankshaft. And then this bearing helps it to spin freely so that it doesn't bind up. We're going to go ahead and just speed through the rest of the install here. Just everything's in backwards and reverse, and install the pulley, install the fan. But after I put the pulley on, obviously I'm going to install the drive belt. That'll make everything a lot easier, so I don't got to fight around the fan. Then I'll install the fan and show you how to do that. Alright, that should be it. I got the distributor set, timing set, jump pack is on. As long as she's got fuel, she should start right up. Let me get this out of the way so it don't fall down. Okay, are you ready? Oh, it's trying. Okay. I could still have the firing order wrong. I'm going to turn it back a little bit, the distributor, because it might not be starting because I got advanced or retarded too far. Look at that. Okay. I probably got the firing order wrong. Alright, well, let's get this timing set. Alright, well, she is running. I got to put the intake tube back on it yet. Just had to make a slight adjustment on the timing, ignition timing. Obviously, you hook your positive and your negative up to your battery on your timing light. You hook up your clamp to cylinder number 1 as close to the spark plug as you can get it. You come over here and you fire that light right down there at your timing marks. And when the white line lines up with the biggest gap there, which is 10 degrees, that's the perfect spot. So
You can't see it right now because I don't have the timing light on it. But, yeah, I don't know that the camera would pick it up very well. But it's definitely right there at 10 degrees, so this OBS Ford F-150 1994 4.9 300 cubic inch timing job is complete. Well, oh, look at that. Oh, hair's all messed up. There you have it. My name is Eric. That is the 1993 Ford F-150. I'm sorry, 1994 Ford F-150. And this is Eric's Everything Auto.